Welcome to TradingPub.com's morning report. Real quick before we get started, give you a standard risk disclaimer. As you know, when you start talking about futures and options products, there is substantial risk involved. We're not making any kind of recommendations here, just kind of going over some thoughts over some of the different markets that we watch throughout the week. All right, obviously we're going to start today's report off with yesterday's hot stock, which was Google. Google had been trading in a pretty much straight up fashion all the way to October the 5th, where we put in a high at 774.38. Saw the stock pull back some. When I say some, I mean about 50 points. It bottomed out around 730, rallied back up. We were trading right around the 755, 760 area when earnings were released early yesterday. And Google absolutely fell out of bed. You saw Google drop from 760 down all the way to a low around the 675 area. So again, well over an 8% decline intraday. And so far you've seen it snap back a little bit. It was up earlier, currently trading at 698. Our best guess here, and I know a lot of people right after an earnings announcement think, okay, Google's cheap now, let's jump into it. A lot of times when you see a move like this, you'll see some consolidation for a little while, and so that's kind of what we would look for ideally. In the perfect scenario, we'd like to see Google start to build a bit of a base, and obviously if you look at it here, going back on the daily chart, you had a swing low down here at 660, a swing low there, the 675. That's the 675 area that held, and then some support around the 680 area. So those are three areas I'd watch: 680, the 675, and then down at 660. Again, remember when Google was on its upswing, you had a little bit of resistance here at 680, so you can kind of use that as a line in the sand. What we think the bulls would like to see, I mean, obviously the bulls would like to see a huge rally, but what we'd like to see for Google in a bearish case would be for it to stay above this 680 period over the next couple days, kind of build a base, and then start to break out above the 710 area. So again, like I said, I think the initial reaction when you have a big drop like this with a company, I think pretty much everybody would agree Google's a pretty strong company, would be to jump right on it. Again, we tend to wait. Let's see if we get some consolidation, build a base, come up with some levels where we can take a trade without risk. The problem right now is it's tough to find a good stop. If you got long here, do you put a stop below yesterday's low? Do you put a stop below the 660 area? Do you put a stop intraday low? It's really just hard. You're kind of just picking a price out of nowhere to find a stop rather than waiting for it to consolidate a little bit. If we can hold this 680 level, then we've got a pretty good idea that that's a good support level and can put a stop under that level. Now looking at the S&Ps over on the chart on the right, you see the S&Ps are currently trading at 1442.75, trading down some. We were actually up early on in the Globex and have since come down. Now if you look at this chart is basically telling us that there's just not much going on. We had the big move up from 1420. We went to the 1460 area. We've been talking this week about how if we could see the S&Ps get above 1460 and stay there, we really felt like that 1468 area would start to be a magnet. We could not get into the 60s with any momentum, so couldn't get the S&Ps up high enough where that 1468 level would start to become a magnet. And you can go back to the previous days videos that we had and learn more about that when we had talked about the magnet type setup. But again, we never really got above that 1460 level in order to do so. Now it's interesting, yesterday we talked about the Australian dollar. We actually started talking about it, I believe, on Wednesday, and how we were watching for that 104 area. But yesterday we said watch the S&P because the Australian dollar moves pretty much with the S&P. So take a look at this chart, just kind of remember what you see in this chart, and then take a look at this. And here's the Australian dollar, and I'll just do that. And notice it's pretty much the same chart of the S&P 500. So as long as we're seeing weakness in the S&P, we're going to be seeing some weakness in the Australian dollar. It's really not down that much, down at 102.90. If the S&P, the number we gave you yesterday on the S&P was we really wanted to see the S&P hold above the 30 area. So again, I'll pull the S&P back up. Really wanted to see it hold above that 1430 area. Now the last thing we're going to look at today are bonds. We're going to look at the bond markets. And you see bonds trading at 146.26. Remember earlier this week we talked about that 147 area being big, and we just absolutely blew through it. a couple days ago. So again, we had blown through that level of support. The next big support area is down at 144. So we'll look at that 144.10 area as the next big support area. Obviously, if you see Google selling off, if we're seeing Apple sell off, and we'll throw up Apple real quick and see if it's shown anything. Apple's selling off here, Google's selling off, you've got the S&P selling off. That's bullish for the bonds. So if you're looking at a bullish bond trade, the number you want to remember, that 147.10, that was the big support that we broke through that led to a big sell-off, that'll now be a pretty good resistance area to watch to the upside on the 30-year bond. You got Apple at 625, and remember, the big number on Apple that we were watching as support that the bulls really want to defend is that 620 area. So you want to keep a close eye on 620 on Apple. All right, well, so far this week we've had a couple of outstanding events, and if you're looking for some good free education over the weekend, what you can do, if you go to our website, which is tradingpub.com, it's www.tradingpub.com. At the top you see a tab, it says free education, and you can select the category, whether it be futures, Nadex, options, reviews, stocks, or Forex. But if you just click on free education, if you just click on the top tab, it'll take you to a page, and this shows all of our recordings. Now, we had an excellent event yesterday. We had about 800 people packing out the room with Tom Busby, Guy Adami, and Barry Burns, and we've got copies of that recording on the site. I would highly recommend you guys taking the time to look at 5 Trades for the Right Now with Stephen Place, especially if you enjoy options trading. And basically, all you have to do, you click on that link, it says 5 Trades for the Right Now, and it'll show you here we've got a copy of the recording. So again, you can click on that video and it'll start to play the recording for you, but highly recommend you taking the time to view those 2 recordings. We've got an event today at 10 o'clock Central Time on breakouts and price cycles with Larry Gaines. We'll get that posted as well. So this weekend, if you go to our website, tradingpub.com, you can click on the free education tab, and basically if you just click at the top, it'll take you to all of it. If you want to look at specialized, whether futures education, options, Nadex, whatever you prefer, you can go there. But check out those recordings this weekend, and we'll be back for our next video on Monday.